Welcome to the Be That 1% podcast. I'm your host, James Silvas, mindset specialist and performance coach. And here on the show, I'm going to challenge you to think deeper, commit to greatness, and develop a stronger mindset. You'll hear stories from those who are living life on their terms, and you'll receive strategies that will help you level up. So the question is, are you ready to be your own 1%? Let's get started. So if you've been following me for a while now, you may know that I recently just got back from Costa Rica, and it was there that I completed my first all-men's international leadership experience called Forge. And it was a nudge that I had in October to fulfill. It was something that was new to me, and it was an inspired thought, and as soon as I had it, it was, this has to happen. And I had no skill in this. I had no real awareness in what it takes to go to a different country, establish the connections, the venue, the charity initiatives, the transportation. I had to physically go there as I had not been to Costa Rica up until this year. It was a lot of news for me, like new things, and it was very challenging. But having now gone through it and experienced the breakthroughs, the insights, the shifts, the stillness, the presence, the level of precision that we were able to get to in 8 days is still mind-blowing me on what we were able to uncover and experience. And I just, so much gratitude to the people who came, to myself for following this intuition, for my amazing team that allowed for all this brilliance and genius to flow through, and also for our sponsors that took care of us while we were down there. One of our sponsors was Element, LMNT. They are a electrolyte salt that you put in your water that keeps you hydrated. And if you've never been to Costa Rica, it's very humid, right? So you're sweating a lot, and it was important that we maintain our hydration, not only so that we could do the deep work on ourselves, but also show up for the community of Nosara with our 3 different charity initiatives. And we were able to raise $13,000 to give back to the lands of Costa Rica, and that's largely a part due to all of you and your support. So thank you for donating to such great causes in, reforestation, the children who are growing up in underprivileged communities, supporting their schooling, their skills, and giving them, a vision for their future, and also our recycling initiatives. So thank you. Thank you to Element for supporting our hydration and keeping us top of mind and focused so that we can show up at our best. Another sponsor that we had is Strong Coffee. Strong Coffee is great for on the go. As me, I'm in probably 40 flights a year to different parts of the world, and caffeine is definitely one of those things that you want to be mindful of in how you take it, where you're taking, what are you using, and Strong Coffee puts out a great product that gives you the adaptogens that your body needs and keeps you in that right state of mind, that right zone of energy, so that you can continue to do what you love. So thank you, Strong Coffee, for supporting Forge and for supporting the leaders and this global impact that Forge has created. And another one of our sponsors is Tongo. Grand Tongo is a mosquito insect repellent. And none of the attendees that I know of that came on this trip have reported of any bug bites. And that's, I think, large part due to Grand Tongo and what they've created. It doesn't smell. They have different scents. This one that I have is green tea and mint. And they were kind enough to donate to our cause and keep us safe from potential dengue fever, which is no joke. So if you are traveling to, dense, tropical, humid climates and you're looking for a really good insect repellent, it's clean, it's free of chemicals, it's all natural, it's amazing. So I'll link to all this stuff in the bio, or link in the notes, and you guys can check it out. And lastly, I want to thank Nike for supporting us with the gear. Water bottles that came in clutch, obviously, with having water on hand, and our gear, our We had pouches, we had shirts and shorts, and we looked as a team. We looked unified. We looked ready to serve and show up and do the the important work on ourselves. So thank you to our sponsors. Thank you to all of you for making this experience such a profound one for not only the residents in Costa Rica, but for me as well. Thank you for being a part of this podcast and a part of this community. And let's continue to be the change we wish to see. And now on to the show. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Be That 1% podcast. Today, we have Kute Blackson on the podcast today. He is a transformational teacher, a national best-selling author of You Are the One, and has a new book called The Magic of Surrender. Kute helps some of the world's wealthiest people develop a transcendent mindset that is rooted in truth and purpose. Using various proven techniques, Kute helps his clients discover who they truly are and what frees them from the shackles of their false belief systems that they have. He's been featured on Larry King Now, Dr. Drew, NPR, Impact Theory, and many more publications and well-known podcasts. And so let's welcome Kute to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So we have some rapid-fire questions to help the audience kind of get to know you quick and in a hurry. So my first question for you is, where were you born and raised?
Born in Ghana, West Africa. Age 3, moved to London, grew up in London till I was 18. From 18, Los Angeles, California.
Beautiful. What is a philosophy that you live by?
I mean, that's not a rapid fire question. I mean, just for the sake of the rapid fire, hey, love, bottom line. Love is everything. Love now.
What's a recent book that you have read that offered immense value?
Recent book. Wow, I haven't read as much recently. I was reading Strategic Millionaire. What else is on my bookshelf here that I've been reading? I don't read as much these days. I just tend to meditate. But I know there's something else. Elon Musk Bio by Walter Isaacson. That's been interesting.
Yeah, good. I've also been on a similar journey with more self-reflection, internal discovery than reading. So we could touch on that in a minute. What's a piece of advice that you've received that has served you well?
In life, or
however you wanna take it.
I think I've received different advices, but different advice serves you at different levels of your consciousness, and different advice serves you at different stages of your life. So I'd love to just give a blanket piece of advice that I've received, but depending on where I've been at, that piece of advice was relevant to that version of me at that particular time, So it's hard to just say there's one piece of advice that I've been given. I'll be honest. We'll have to have a deeper dive into that.
Okay, we'll dive into that. I think some questions will kind of highlight something there. What is a belief of yours that has supported your growth?
I believe that we are souls. We incarnate into this human experience in order to learn, to grow, to evolve. Life is really a university for our soul's evolution. Everybody, and if that's the case, everybody's your teacher. The curriculum is always in session. Class is always in session. So no matter what happens, it doesn't really matter what happens or who does what or who doesn't do what. What matters is what you do with it, and what matters is that you use everything for your soul's learning and growth. And so long as you use everything for your soul's learning and growth to learn lessons and become more of who you really are, you can never lose.
Love that. Last question is, what does the world need more of right now?
I think the world needs more love, man. That's the bottom line. Isn't it what we all want? Whether you're black, white, Jewish, Palestinian, Israeli, Russian, Ukrainian. I mean, love is a language that we all understand. So we need more love, but we need more understanding. Love doesn't necessarily mean agreement. Like, hey, I love you if you agree with me. Love, true love, requires patience, understanding, and respect. So even though I might not agree with you, if I try to understand you, then I can at least respect who you are and understand how you got to believe what you believe. And even though that I don't understand, even though I don't agree with you, I can at least understand how you got to believe that. Because the truth is, if I grew up how certain people grew up, I would believe what they believe. And if I grew up in Israel, if I grew up in Palestine, if I grew up in Congo, if I grew up in, Afghanistan, if I grew up in, Middle America, wherever it is, then pretty much we would probably have a tendency to believe certain things that we don't believe now. And so what I have found is most people can't help themselves given what they believe. And if you believe what they believed, you would probably do what they did. The thing is, we say, well, I don't believe what they believe. Exactly. And so because you don't believe what they believe, you act differently. But when someone so believes certain things, which is really based on their conditioning, and when we're conditioned from childhood and religion and parents and society and media and programming and education system, we believe ourselves to be those beliefs, and we believe those beliefs to be real, and now we act according to those beliefs, and that's where we cause pain to other people. So I think if we can really cultivate love in the form of patience and respect and understanding, then we can start building a bridge with those that believe different things and those that aren't like us, and start healing the division in our society today.
Love that. Appreciate that. One of the things that I wanted to start with today is kind of the pressures that we all kind of undergo from our families or from societies or the cultures that we're kind of living in or
Mhm.
influenced by. And that can cause us to pursue careers that don't light us up. It can cause us
Yeah.
to stay in relationships longer than we need to. And from your story, from what I understand, your father, being this very powerful, minister and having churches, hundreds of churches, and you speaking in those churches early on, the kind of the assumption from your dad, from how I see it, is that you were going to take over those churches. You were going to continue in his footsteps and make it even better than maybe he, what he established. And
Hmm.
there came a moment where you told your dad that you're not going to do that. You're not going to take that path, which when I hear that requires a lot of courage, a lot of strength,
Hmm.
and also a lot of conviction in your truth and where you see yourself going. And I have moments in my life where I've had that situation with my
Yeah.
parents. But I'm curious for you, what was
Mm.
that like, leading up to that moment? What was that moment like? And then what changed after that conversation, either in you or in the dynamic with your father?
Yeah, my father has 300 churches in Ghana, West Africa, a huge church in London, hundreds at its height, hundreds of thousands of people. And in London, his church was 4 to 5 thousand people every Sunday at its height. And so a lot of expectations on me because I started speaking in my father's churches when I was age 8. I was ordained at 14. The thing is, I knew at age 14 that this was not my life. I knew at age 14 that this was not my destiny. I knew at age 14 that this was not my path. I knew at age 14 that I had a different calling, but to be honest, I was too afraid as a kid to speak my truth. Like many of us, I wanted to be loved. I wanted to fit in. I wanted to be validated. My father was iconic. He was a hero, typically our fathers are to most boys, right? At first, we idolize our fathers, then we demonize our father, then we humanize our fathers, right? And so for me, he was a hero. And so to say no to him was death. So I went along with it. And I wanted to help people. So I think for many years, I tried to fit myself into a box of becoming who I thought I wanted the world wanted me to be, who I thought my father wanted me to be. And in the process of that, I became miserable. In the process of that, I became unhappy. In the process of that, um, I felt like I was dying inside. And so it took me, honestly, 4 years from 14 to 18 to really question and depression and grieving and frustration and praying to God and questioning everything. And when I turned 18, what happened was I felt a deep calling to come to America because as a young boy, I would sneak into my father's office and I would I would read. He had a library of like 1,000 books, and I basically went through 800 of his books on spirituality and self-help and personal growth. Everyone from Louise Hay and Wayne Dyer and Deepak Chopra, Tony Robbins, Marianne Williamson, and I would read these books, and I would have such profound experiences. And so all of the modern day authors in self-help at that time happened to live in California, specifically LA, San Diego, Southern California. So for me, this was a mecca. And so as a young boy, I wanted to come to LA and meet these people and go into this field. And when I was 18, I got a very strong calling of my soul that said, go to America. And sometimes when your soul guides you, it's not always convenient. It's not always comfortable. I think your soul doesn't care about convenience. It cares about evolution. It cares about growth. That's it. But what I have found through my own experience, what I have found through living my life, not from theory, not from a book, not from what someone has told me, is that when you follow your soul and you don't compromise the true soul directive, the knowing, the clarity, the intuition, because all of us, we know there is a knowing inside of us. We feel that there is something we've been put on the planet to do. There's something we're here to create. There's a knowing inside of us. Most of us live our lives negotiating that knowing, denying that knowing, suppressing that knowing because we're afraid. We're afraid of what people will think. We're afraid of what society will think. We're afraid of being disappointed. We're afraid we're going to fail. We're afraid we won't match up. We're afraid of the responsibility. And so I decided to listen to that. And I knew what that would mean for my life. And it was terrifying. Took me, I wish I could say I was fearless and I had no fears. Like I was shit scared. I was terrified. I was shaking. But when I looked, the alternative was when I looked into my future, I saw that I could take over my father's church and I could, be successful by the world standards. But age 30, age 40, age 50, age 60, if I didn't have myself, if I didn't have my soul, if I didn't have my integrity, if I didn't have my truth, what kind of success is that? And that's to me, that's a living death. And I
Mm-hmm.
think many of us, we are living, but we're not alive. We are living, but we're actually dead. We're not awake. We're sleepwalking. And I think that is the greatest sense of suffering. I mean, look at the antidepressant rates, like 50, 60, however many percent in the US, I think because we can feel a deeper truth, we numb it, and to numb it and live with that knowing is what's painful. And so I knew what I had to do. And that's when I decided at 18, I told my mother, she said, I support you. And that's all I needed was one person to say, I love you unconditionally and I support you. And that's what my mother gave me. And as a result, at 18, I decided to have the conversation with my father and terrified, sure he would never speak to me again. I told my father, I'm not taking over, but I love you. He said, are you sure? I said, yeah. And we didn't speak for 2 years. And it was the scariest. I wish, sometimes people think, man, that when you find your purpose, like the unicorns come out and like the angels arrive and all the self-help books tend to sell this, yeah, follow your bliss, find your purpose, everything like you just manifest, law of attraction, you just manifest things like millions of dollars fall out of your ass and just like people throw dreams and visions at you. Let me tell you, sometimes when you find your purpose, that's when the real shit begins. That's when the real challenges begin. That's when the real difficulties begin. That's when the real soul tests begin. And to me, these are tests that we have to go through in order to grow, in order to evolve, in order to tap into the deeper dimension of our true being so that we can find out who we really are and grow into the person that is actually capable of fulfilling the dream and the vision that we've been given. To me, dreams and visions are evolutionary. A real vision is a dream you won't know how on earth you're going to fulfill. A real goal is a goal that will take you on a journey and cause you to grow and cause you to expand beyond your current capacity so that regardless of whether you achieve it or whether you don't achieve it, who you become in the process is transformed. To me, that is a real goal and a real vision. And so many of us, we're not afraid enough. We're not terrified enough. We're too comfortable. We set a goal that we kind of know we can achieve and we can strategize, but it doesn't force us to grow. Like if people say, I have a vision and I'm terrified, good. because a true vision is going to force you to stretch out of your comfort zone, to become who you've never been, to be who you've never been, to go where you've never gone, to do what you've never done. And to me, this is evolution. And so I was terrified. My father and I didn't speak for 2 years, and I was left in this moment of deep aloneness where I felt like I had leaped off of the edge. You know that feeling where you have dived into the abyss of darkness and there is nobody there. And I have no money, don't come from a rich background, chose not to go to university, have no freaking job skills other than preaching and speaking and reading self-help books. Like, how the hell am I going to survive in this world? But I knew that there was a calling, there was a vision. And what I want to tell people is those dreams that you have, many times we deny the dreams because we wonder, how am I going to fulfill it? How am I going to do it? I'm not qualified. I don't know anyone. I don't have money. I don't have resources. So we just deny it. But what I want everyone to know is if you have a dream and a vision, acknowledge it. To me, your dream doesn't belong to you. Your dream belongs to life. Your dream belongs to God. Your dream belongs to the universe. And that dream, you haven't chosen that dream. The dream chose you. Life chose you. The divine chose you because you're the perfect person to fulfill that dream and the vision. Based on your childhood, based on your trauma, based on your divorce, based on your abuse, based on your parent, based on everything you've been through, somehow you have been created as the perfect person to be able to fulfill that dream and that vision. And so I think if there's anything I've done is I've just sort of done my best to trust and say, yes, okay, yes. And even though I didn't know how I was going to come to America and fulfill the vision, I said yes. And long story short, I said a prayer one day at 18 years old. And in my meditation, I said, God, if this dream is true, then you need to reveal the way, because I don't know how the hell I'm going to get to the States. Long story short, I ended up winning a green card in the green card lottery. And that manifestation is what enabled me literally to come to the US with as an 18-year-old kid with 2 suitcases, $800 in my pocket, knew no one in the country, and just followed my calling, followed my soul. And I went and found teachers and mentors and authors that I read about and studied with some of them. And, I got to the place as a young man where, I was tired of reading another book, man. I was tired of reading about Deepak's experience and, okay, that's Tony Robbins' experience and, Louise Hay's experience. I'm like, I want to know for myself, does this shit work? I want to know for myself, does God exist? Is it real? What is true happiness? I don't care about Gandhi's version. Like, what is my experience of it? And so when I was tired of reading the menu, uh, in a nutshell, I mean, there's a whole sequence of events, but I was guided to walk the Camino. And that took me to northern Spain, a 900-kilometer trek, shaved my head, left everything, broke up with my girlfriend, and I walked the Camino for a month. And that led me to Israel. That led me to Thailand. That led me to India. And it was spending about 3 months in India that really transformed my life and cracked me wide open to another dimension of myself and my purpose. And that's when I came back to the US, and um, again, long story short, but I began working with people as a young man, one-on-one. This is before social media, before Facebook, before coaching was a popular thing. Had no clue what I was doing, but I was guided by a force and a deep desire to help people experience the level of freedom I was experiencing. The kind of freedom that I felt was I had no girlfriend, I had no money, was practically homeless. Uh, but I had such a sense of freedom that wasn't dependent on anything. I had such a sense of freedom that wasn't dependent on anything outside. And that was so powerful for me to experience that people started coming up to me and say, hey, what's your deal? What do you do? How comes you seem so happy? And it just led to conversations, which led to working with people one-on-one. And my way of working with people one-on-one, honestly, without planning, just evolved. And then I created a methodology 20 years ago. I called it uncoaching, where I really help people peel away the layers of conditioning that we've developed so that they can access their own inner freedom and live that. And so that's a bit of my journey.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I think traveling to those types of places just gets us out of our norms and exposes us to so much variety and texture that you can't read in a book. You can't have
Yeah,
a conversation. You have to go and experience it in the land.
yeah, yeah.
Sounds like you felt a lot of that, and especially India. India is somewhere that I ultimately want to go to. It's on my list, and everyone I
Amazing.
talk to is like, you got to go. So the one of the things that I think is about, I assume about your newest book, The Magic of Surrender, is this idea of surrender and its relationship to control, and how
Hmm.
people, everybody has a different type of relationship to control. Some are very controlling to the point where they like can't do anything that they don't know. Others maybe a lot on the other side of the spectrum. From your experience, what is your relationship to control, and how do you define surrender in the way that's attached to your truth, to your purpose, to this vision, to your dream, and all of that?
Well, I think in our culture today we have so many misconceptions. Let's start there on what surrender is and what surrender isn't.
Right.
Um, we have this idea, this negative connotation that surrender is giving up, surrender is waving the white flag, surrender is being a doormat, surrender is just sitting there and being a vegetable and doing nothing. Surrender is being lazy, surrender is you're going to be taken advantage of, surrender means you're going to get left behind, surrender means all of these negative things. And I'm like, who the hell would want to surrender if that it's like, wait a second. And like, if I surrender, I'm not going to manifest my goals and dreams and desires. If I surrender, I'm going to get less in life. And so I'm actually saying, no, if you surrender, truly understood the real essence of surrender, what if you didn't get less? But what if you got more? Like, what if you actually got more? Maybe not what you thought, right? But what if it was better than what you thought? Different, better, more expanded, right? There's a life that you thought, but then there's a life that's seeking to happen. That is often like if we look at the best things in our lives that have happened. Are you married? Are you in a relationship? Right? So
Married.
so did you plan that? I mean, maybe you planned it. I don't know. But very few of us say, okay, yeah, at 6 p.m. today, I'm going to go down to the Starbucks coffee shop, and then my wife's going to be sitting there in a pink shirt, and this is how it's going to go down. Most of it just sort of happened in the process of living life, or someone said, hey, you got to meet, boom. It's like, wow, just happened. And so many of the best things in our life just happen in the process of living. And so, yes, I believe that surrender is the most powerful thing that we can do. It is the real key to the next level of your life. It is the real secret to true manifestation, authentic manifestation. It is the password to freedom. If you look at the great ones, right? Jesus, Buddha, Gandhi, Mother Teresa, Mandela, Martin Luther King, people that achieved like magnificent things in different areas and different ways. Bruce Lee, Muhammad Ali, right? Childhood heroes of mine, great in their own way as well. At some point, if you really look at the great ones, they all got to the point in their lives where they surrendered. They surrendered to that purpose that was bigger than themselves. Gandhi thought he was just going to be a successful lawyer, but there was a bigger calling in his life that he had to surrender to. Martin Luther King did not want to be the leader of the civil rights movement, and he just wanted to run his little church, but there was a calling that he had to surrender to.